everyone, and welcome to our new online learning environment. This will be new for all of us, and I'll figure it out as well as you guys do. So my plan is going forward, we are going to see, actually you are going to see a pre-recorded video of mine. I may do some live ones. I brought home a training board with all the accessories so I can do stuff on there and take you through the experiments that we would do in class. And I'll try to make this the best we can do. As far as labs go, I'm going to readjust how that's all graded because naturally you can't do them. So we'll figure that out as we go. Don't get hung up on the grades you see on the grade board, on the grade book, because they're going to change. I have to change the weights that those labs held before, and we'll figure it out. So I'm going to do a video. I'm going to post it. You figure the relevant time for that is within a week because the following week we'll do another one. I may upload these faster, and then you have some control over your timing. It all depends how this works for me as well. After you watch the video, there's going to be two things I want you to do. One of them is I'm going to have a discussion box that's ready for it, and I want every one of you to comment, either a comment about it, a relative comment, a reply to somebody else's comment. I want to see everybody be in that. That's how I'm going to deal with attendance. If you show up in there, you get credit. If you're not there, then I have no proof that you were here. So that's how I'm going to do it. The other thing that's going to happen is there will be a quiz linked to this video. That's a few questions, content from inside there, and you'll see that under the quiz area pertaining to the video that it's for. We will do that through the whole rest of the semester, and we'll get through it. I'm going to try to make these things as informative and entertaining as you can have under the circumstances, and I hope that you really do learn from this. What I'm going to do, like for example, this video I'm going to show you today. I'm going to take it to Amazon, and I'm going to show you these things that can be bought there so you can buy these things and you can practice, right? That's the best way to go about it. I've got some videos in here that are going to work along with this too that you'll learn from as well. So this is the topic I was going to cover with you next. We're going to come back to class. You have your midterm. It is posted. The time that our class would meet this coming week is when that midterm will be opened up for you. You have 75 minutes to do it from the moment you log into it. Once you are done, you'll submit it, and you'll be able to review it. I do not have it giving you the right answers. I want you to research that stuff. That midterm, once that closes, it's going to lock up. But if you go into that during the class times that we would normally have, you'll have the 75 minutes to do it. If you finish early, since I know some of you people finish in 12 minutes, go back and look at all your questions. You can use your book and your notes and all that kind of stuff. You're home. I don't know what you're using. Go back and look at those things before you actually submit the test and fix those answers that you think are not right now that you looked at them again. Do the best you can do. Since we don't have the lab component in here, you figure this stuff's going to matter more for you. So really spend the time to try to do the best that you can do. Homework is going to be put on with a template of how I want you to submit it. So you'll look at the tab for the homework, and there'll be a text box, and I want you to put the homework in the same format that you see that I give you. I can grade it from there. And I think we'll get along fine. Just really look at the announcements. My announcements will be an outline rather than a summary because it's going to be what's expected of you. So I want you to check that stuff and check frequently. I have no other way to get in touch with you now other than Canvas or email. So check all the time. Also, if you have stuff that you're still working on that you owe me, email it to me, and I can get it into the grade book. You'll still see what you're missing. I'm going to update Canvas just as I always did. So what you're going to get is a little bit more than I would in the classroom. This is a presentation that I made when I was teaching how to install accessories, and it goes right into wiring, right? Wire repair is going to be our topic. That's what I was planning to do when we came back from spring break. So this presentation takes you through it. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the few slides that are before the wire information, because you're all going to do things and you should have this stuff in your mind as you're planning it, right? So we're going to roll in here, and you're gonna see the first thing you need to do when you're planning anything is what are you adding? What are you doing? A radio? Are you doing lighting? Are you doing gauges? Are you adding high performance stuff? Are you putting additional power points in to plug in a bunch of stuff? Are you doing heated mirrors or seats or security systems, GPS, all these things, right? When you're sitting down and you're dealing with them, you know that stuff's going to change on how well you do it, whether it's wiring that's running near exhaust components, whether it's wiring that's going to chafe on a piece of dash structure, whether it's something that's going to take a lot of current, right? How many access points do you need? What if you have to take it apart? Do you have a plan on what wiring you just added? The things that I'm adding, and I make some form of a diagram, so I even know what I did. 5 years later, who knows what you did? Circuit protection, wires flexing, right? Just think these things through as you decide what you want to do. Routing wires so you can't see them. You look at how these beautiful custom stuff is done. Your stuff can come out that way too if you plan it right. Don't be afraid. Educate yourself to what it takes to remove some of the trim pieces and things like that are in your way. Right? So before you begin, document your vehicle information. Ultimately, you need the diagrams for the car that you're working on. Without that stuff, what are you tapping into? My wife's 2016 Mazda 6, I was putting a keyless entry system into it, and I had to find those wires in the dash to be able to tap into. So you need to know what you're working on and what information are you going to need. I've told you that I'm doing this conversion on this Silverado, going from drive-by wire to drive-by cable. You can't imagine how many diagrams I printed out and I have this stuff taped on my garage wall, my garage door, so I can keep my head straight, right? So you want to make sure you have all that information before you start. How do you access where you need to? Do you have to get inside the dash? Do you have to get under the dash? Do you have to find a hole that goes through the firewall to run some wires through? Right? Things like that are relevant. You got to figure that out ahead of time, because how are you going to do it? Will the component work in the vehicle? So many times. If you take my Mini, every button in that car is a 5-volt reference to a body computer that now is controlling whatever it is that I've done. You want to open the window, you flip the switch, it sends a signal to the body computer, and the body computer turns on the window motor. So if you're adding things, you need to know if it's going to even work with what you have. Try to find a 12-volt fuse in my fuse box. There's like 3. All the rest of this stuff is just 5-volt kind of things. It's crazy. Where are you going to mount it, right? Where are you going to put the switch? Where are you going to put the driving lights? Where are you going to put the gauge that you're putting in? How are you going to run that wiring so it fits right, it looks good, it doesn't get pinched, you can access it, it won't short out. How do you get from one part of the car to another? You're in the trunk, you got to get under the hood. How do you run those wires and get it through all those areas? How are you going to protect the circuit? Remember, circuit protection should always be at the end of the circuit. Now, that end could be either the ground or the power, right? Both of them are equally powerful. Both of them equally control the circuit. So as long as it happens closest to the end of something, you minimize the damage that will happen to the wiring should you make a boo-boo. Will the wiring be able to be seen? Funny how I never noticed I got the wrong scene in this. Will you be able to see it? Is that how you want it to be? How will you make the connections to the existing stuff? What type of connections would you make, right? All these things have to come in before you go and do anything. The next step, work out your plan on paper. Just as I'm making you do this stuff and interpret from wiring diagrams, if you can build it on paper, you can figure out if that circuit will work in real life. Maybe you have to tweak your stuff, but if you truly understand what you're looking at on paper, you know when you walk to the car and hook it up, it's going to work. Get your plan and get the components, wiring diagrams for the circuits that you're working on for that car, and marry them together. Figure out how you're going to access that stuff before you start cutting your car apart. Determine what connections you need to make within it. Determine how you're going to make the connections, right? How are you going to tap into it? Are you going to solder? What if you're working on a Mercedes and it's got fiber optic cables, right? You really need to figure out how you're going to do this, and some research has to go when it comes to where is the circuit protection to be positioned? Where are you going to put it, right? Do you want to have a loose fuse under a dash, or do you want to have it in the fuse box, someplace where you know it's going to be? Because 10 years from now, or the person that buys the car from you might have no idea there was even a fuse there for it when the thing stops working, right? So think about that. Then again, determine where the stuff's going to be mounted, and how you're going to do it. You're going to screw it in, you're going to double stick tape it, or you're going to 3D print a bezel, which is a pretty cool way to do stuff nowadays. If you're doing multiple units, right, like a whole set of lights or fog lights, or gauges, how will they look once they're permanently mounted, right? Evenness, position-wise, indexed the right way. Once you put it, you put it. That's it. You can't change it. And is the stuff you put in going to rattle or squeak? Because you're going to want to burn your car to the ground if they do. So think about adding, rubber or foam or securing things. The last thing you want to do is noise, right? And I'm always about making stuff look as factory as I can ever make it. Right, so now you're going to prepare the car. Take the precautions. Do you got to disconnect the battery? Right? Are there airbags or restraint systems? If there's any question, right, because you have airbags in your A-pillars, you have airbags in the roof panels, you have airbags in your seats, right? Look at the service information on how to disable the airbag systems before you go in. Same thing goes with trim removal tools, right? Make sure you're not going to pierce those components when you try to pull the covers off. Remove the panels to give you better access. Test fit everything to make sure it looks good before you actually start popping holes in and putting it in. Now map out the locations where things will go. Map out where your switch goes in relation to your lights. Stretch them all out. Figure out if you got enough room to put them in. Do you have enough wire to get where you got to go? Can you access where your connections need to be made? A lot of times you think about, I'll just grab it there, and you discover you can't get to there. Can you proceed without damaging the vehicle or compromising future service? You don't want to put something in front of something without considering having to replace that thing you just blocked. You don't want to damage the vehicle by cutting into something that now will become oxidized and stop working, right? So think about that. How many times do you hear about someone putting a set of headers on a car and discover they can't get to the spark plugs anymore, right? Those kind of things. You never want to make a car worse.